I feel compelled to tell people the truth. Like, and the truth is, if you wait until marriage, if you get a full-time job, if you avoid having kids out of wedlock.
Yes, the Ben Shapiro argument.
I know those are like cliche conservative talking points.
Yeah.
But the data is the data, man.
Yeah.
That if you actually do things God's way, you are less likely to end up in poverty. You're less likely to end up with a mental breakdown. You're less likely to end up or depressed. You're less likely to go through a lot of our societal ills. You're less likely to end up with an unwanted pregnancy, right? So like when you talk about the wisdom of God, like, yes, sometimes it's situational. Should I go into business with this person? Should I not go into business? Should we start this? Should we not? I get it. There's other stuff, man, that I think is pretty cut and dry.
All right. I hear you, but I would,
You would disagree. Okay.
Well, to a degree, yeah.
To a degree.
I don't want to open a new can of worms,
No, that's fair. Okay. I want to show you something. I want to see what you think about this.
Oh, boy.
This
surprises.
This is America becoming more conservative from 2022 to 2023. I want to know what you think about this because we're becoming more bigoted and homophobic. This is Gallup, by the way, so this isn't like something Fringe or Fox News. Regardless of whether you think the issue should be legal for each one, please tell me whether you personally believe it is morally acceptable or morally wrong.
Got it.
Figures of the percentage saying they are morally acceptable. So in 2002, 92% of the population...
2022.
So excuse me, thank you. 2022, 92% of the population thought birth control was morally acceptable. Now it's 88%.
Yep.
Okay. Divorce, 81%. Now it's 78%. Okay. So that means that it went down. Less people think divorce is morally acceptable. Sex between unmarried man and woman, 4%. That went down. So less people think fornication's okay. Having a baby outside of marriage, 70%. That stayed steady. Gambling went down. Interesting. Here's a crazy one. Or in relationships, 7 points down. 64% think it's morally acceptable in 2002. So excuse me, 2022, 71% did.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The death penalty has went up.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all by this.
That's crazy. Medically testing on animals, sex between teenagers went down. I think that's a W. Pornography, 39% think it's appropriate. Yeah. In 2022, only 41% thought that went down. And so married men and women having an affair. I don't know if this is like the Andrew Tate syndrome.
That's a weird one. Went up?
That went up, bro. Crazy.
That one's surprising to me.
That is surprising. Went down.
Yeah.
Less people think so. Appropriate. So, okay, this is polygamy. When a person has more than one spouse at the same time, that stayed the same, right? So it seems like there's the country seems to be shifting more conservative in terms of morality. And I'm curious to think like, what is your thoughts on it? I know you think like the right has gone further right.
This is the symptom of the right-wing media complex.
You think it's the right? This is media.
Dude, when you have, I think about Matt Walsh, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk. These people, I just did the math on this for some research. The Daily Wire, Turning Point, The Blaze, and PragerU do $315 million a year in funding between them. Okay, their accounts alone, not even their personality accounts, 23 million followers.
Say that the first number again.
$315 million in annual funding between them.
Oh, okay. That's actually less than I thought it was.
a third of $1 billion between 4 organizations.
I honestly thought it was bigger.
Daily Wire is 150 million.
I thought it was bigger.
Turning Point 55 million, and they jumped up big time. PragerU 65.
Turning Point is Charlie Kirk.
Yep, Turning Point USA 55 million.
So I thought he made less than that. That's crazy.
He jumped from 2016 to 5 million up to 55 million by 2022 because there's big funding behind these people. So this to me is actually the result of, I think, very effective right-wing media talking points. 100%.
Okay. So let's be fair. So I think that the reason why Andrew Tate is pervasive, is because of half-truths being said with very wrong prescriptions.
Okay.
So Andrew Tate is pervasive, meaning he's spreading, because it's not that there are aspects that some men exhibit that are wrong and should be corrected in sinful behaviors. It's that manhood as a whole is toxic. Toxic masculinity as a whole is generalized. And so someone like Andrew Tate comes in and he goes, no, being competent, strong, capable, being an earner and a provider, those are good attributes. The world's lying to you. They think that they want to keep you weak and docile. It's pervasive because there's a half-truth baked into it.
Okay.
So do you think that the reason why the Daily Wires and the Turning Points, I'm not super familiar with all of Turning Points content, but I consume some Daily Wire stuff. Do you, like if you had the steel man, like why do you think it's so pervasive? Like I could steel man Andrew Tate, though I completely disagree with his conclusions and presuppositions and his prescriptions of the world. I think he's wrong on a lot of stuff, right?
Okay.
But I also understand why he's pervasive. I think it's a yo-yo from the opposite extreme. It's a yo-yo from men oftentimes getting blamed for almost everything in society, right? And he steps in.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of stuff goes back to the patriarchy, right? Like whenever we're talking about, it's like patriarchy.
Yeah, because they're not getting blamed. Women are the ones getting blamed for all this stuff.
So we would disagree on who isn't getting blamed. But,
Totally.
But there is a demographic that he's resonating with that I think.
Yeah, incels.
It's not just incels.
Dude, the guy
I promise you it's not just incels. If there was just incels, there wouldn't be women talking about their husbands and their boyfriends.
Yeah, the trad movement, is that what we're going to get into?
No, not the trad movement.
I'm
talking about women saying their boyfriends and husbands have been contaminated by Andrew Tate, and all of a sudden they're getting weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like if you have the steel man, like why do you think America is becoming seemingly more conservative, or why is Daily Wire pervasive? Why are these organizations pervasive?
I think that the reason why Daily Wire is pervasive is they play on a pretty classical American ideal of hey, this country was once great. We have to get back to being great. And this other group is the one who's responsible for all of your problems.
What other group?
It depends. It could be the liberals. It could be it could be CRT. It could be Black Lives Matter. It could be wokeness. And you just insert whatever that culture war talking point is in that moment. And they're also very effective, and they're also good at pulling up anecdotal evidence to kind of draw a bigger conclusion, right? So if you pull something of like, oh, this school district did this thing, suddenly people go, oh my God, there is this pervasive thing happening among the entire national school system of like this thing happening, right? So I think that's part of why they're really effective at that. Plus they have a huge ally in evangelical spaces. Like evangelical pastors love their stuff. They tend to align more politically thanks to what, the moral majority has built on over time, with the politics and theology kind of becoming more and more enmeshed, which we can track through the evangelical movement and how that has shifted to over time.
Yeah.
So I think that those people play on that. They also play off the idea that we were a Christian nation and that this enemy named secularism wants to take away all of your rights. So I think that they're just really good at pulling pretty classic like fear-mongering tactics that have worked effectively to convince people that, hey, at any day now, you could be thrown in prison for your faith. And that's not an exaggeration because when I was at the Charlie Kirk's Turning Point Pastor Summit, I watched a lead pastor say that
That's crazy.
several times.
That's amazing.
Like, hey guys, anytime now, Joe Biden's America, you could be thrown in prison to amens.
Oh my gosh.
So I do think absolutely
that wasn't a real steel man, but I think that does this a fair.
That's what they do. That's what they say.
No, but a steel man is you're going to give them a good faith argument for why they're pervasive.
My apologies. You're right. You're right. I went to negative. I think the good faith argument would be, hey guys, America is the best nation on earth. We've been blessed, and we need to protect our rich heritage. And there are people and forces in the world who want to destroy everything that makes America and Western civilization great. And these are the threats, and here's why. They want to attack the family unit. They want to redefine gender roles. They want to make us a less Christianized country, and our morals come from a Judeo-Christian worldview. So it's really important that we preserve that so we can preserve the nation for our kids and are preserving human flourishing. How's that?
That was a great steel man.
There you go.
I'm gonna give you that was good. So it's becoming. So there's two sides, right? Because this is what I don't do. I don't do the appeal to motive fallacy. So I don't think that Ben Shapiro is intentionally fear-mongering. I think he's doing what you described. And then I think a proxy of that is dunk on the libs. Let's just dunk on everybody and make them seem stupid, right? I think the flip side to that is I think it would be disingenuous to not acknowledge that whether it's postmodernity, secularism, whatever you want to call it, that there is not remnants of a paradigm and a worldview that's in complete contrast with the areas of and ideals that we've fallen short in. America has things we've fallen short in. If we didn't, there wouldn't even be the idea of pointing people back to that. But there definitely seems to be a paradigm, and I'm not talking no conspiracy theory, Frankfurt School of University stuff, right?
Yeah, Frankfurt School.
Yeah, but I'm genuinely like, do you see some of that? Like, do you see like the desire to wipe away any objective morality, the way to even the phrase "your truth and my truth," right? You don't see any of that as like taking culture by storm and like searing people's conscience.
I mean, I've interviewed a few philosophers about postmodernism and just like what it actually is versus how it's portrayed. I'm not going to claim to be an expert to repeat that. I mean, I think that the idea of your truth, my truth is saying that we can live lives differently and be okay. It's fighting against this idea, I think, of this religious perspective of, hey, either you do it quote unquote God's way, or you're just going to fail at everything. So I think that's kind of more what it's getting at. I think that morality is really complicated, as we talked about. I mean, you made it. I use this example actually often, and you use it already, where it's like, is lying wrong? Yes. Okay. You know, how about if you're going to protect you?
Sure.
Right. Well, it's different. And so, like, I think it's just acknowledging that. Listen, modernity did a lot of good for us, clearly, but it made promises that I think it couldn't keep. Like we can absolutely unpack the foundational objective morality of things.
Yeah.
And life is way more complicated than blank and white binaries.
I think it also made some promises about equality, about everyone having a shot at life, liberty, right? Or those things. Like there were some actual promises made that I think the founding fathers, at least in document, did that they fell short on, right? The
no doubt. I mean, this is like Frederick Doug,
absolutely, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think
James Baldwin, etc.
You bring up Frederick Douglass, James Baldwin. I would say Martin Luther King Jr.
Totally
pointing back to the actual ideals that we had and saying, America, we fell short in these areas.
Yeah,
we could do better.
Totally.
Versus saying, let's burn the whole thing down.
Yeah, I'm not okay. I'll put it this way. I'm sure that people, I'm sure we can find people who would say, let's burn the whole thing down. I'm not aware of people with serious power who are like, let's burn the whole thing down. I think a lot of the things I hear from people who are trying to change things is kind of harkening back to that. Like, hey, we have ideals that we're not living up to. It's kind of, for me, the way I see it, like how I critique the church, where I'm like, guys, I critique you because I know the church can do better than what it's doing now, right? And I do think, by the way, that some of the stuff inside the church culture has to go. I think that we do have to gut out some of the systemic issues that we see. And so I can totally see how someone's like, yeah, we have to get rid of like the fact that like we're still dealing with systemic racism in this country in a lot of ways, right? So like I understand that, but I'm not aware of people that I work with anyway who are like, oh, we need to like burn the whole thing down.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say burn. Well, I mean, dude, a lot of the founders of Black Lives Matter, the organization, not the movement, we're definitely on some like the system needs to completely burn.
I mean,
we need to disrupt the nuclear family, right?
So,
like there was things that they took off their website after they got called on it.
Yeah.
That and this are massively pervasive, right? If you're talking about Kimdi, the only way to combat past discrimination was a future discrimination.
Yes, which he's unpacking. Have you read the book?
I don't need to read the book.
But you'll pull the quote out. Come on. Read the whole. Okay. If you read that chapter, what he's talking about.
What is he talking about?
He uses another example. He uses actually COVID.
Okay.
He goes, hey, when COVID happened, we had to prioritize elderly people to make sure that they were okay first, and then get vaccines out to everyone else. He goes, that's a form of discrimination. We discriminated to make sure that they were okay.
That's a bad
and his
parallel.
point, hey, you can call whatever you want, but what I don't want people to think is that like he's arguing for how it's been twisted. The idea is that if a runner is on a track with other runners and someone breaks that person's leg and then they all go running, it's still not a fair race because their leg was broken. That's the idea, is like the Black community in particular has been set so far behind the 8 ball thanks to things like the Tulsa Race Massacre, thanks to things like that we saw during civil rights, redlining. We can go down the list. We would agree here, I think, on a lot of this stuff, right? So giving those groups or making room or giving them a boost up to get them up to speed so they have access to equal opportunity is a good thing.
I think access to equal opportunity is different than access to equal outcomes for
but
groups.
that's not the same thing.
But it is different.
I agree.
Okay.
And we're talking about equal opportunity.
I think every American. I think every American would say, "I want people to have a shot."
Right, but they don't know what that means. Because how do you fix that? How do you fix the war on drugs from Nixon, where they admitted that it was really about incarcerating Black men?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so this whole talk about the
problem. You overturned the 100-to-1 coke and crack disparity, which was
right, but the effects of those people still in prison is still a thing.
Well, if someone's in prison for the 100-to-1 coke to crack disparity, which I don't know, folks from the 80s and 90s are still in prison.
But what I'm saying is that gutted Black communities.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, if that law was overturned. Right, if we overturn that law, if was Alabama the last state to overturn interracial marriage, right, in the year 2000, if these laws have changed, and then what are we talking about? Then we're talking about policies like affirmative action that is attempting to give Black people a boost, but it's really white women benefiting from it, and it's hurting Asian students. Like that's how that policy pragmatically played out. You see what I'm saying? So like, I think a lot of these laws to create new discrimination are good in intent, but I think they hurt people. Like I think they hurt other people.
It's the civil rights movement, man. It's forced integration, right? Yeah, the government eventually said, "You're not doing this, so we're going to force you to integrate."
Right. I think that's different than saying.
Well, it's different because we're not in that moment in history. Well, if we were, we'd be having the same conversation.
But I would say like it's different if there's an Asian student that is a 99% percentile, and then you bring in someone that's at 87% percentile and give that person the shot. Like, that's hurting a different minority now. And that's how a lot of affirmative action played out.
Yeah, I don't know much about how it played out. I gotta be honest with you on that. I read what I could when the whole thing kind of came out.
You do know that white women benefited the most from affirmative action.
I know very little about the implication. Frankly, I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think a lot of policies are intended to help and they hurt. I think that's what ends up happening.
Well, then what's the other solution then? You just keep things as the status quo. We go back to color blindness.
In terms of I said nothing about color blindness.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, if we're not trying to make policies to fix the problems that we've caused other people groups, like we as a country,
sure.
What is the other answer then?
Other
More free markets?
Are you familiar with Homeboy Industries?
Oh, I know that name. Is he the Catholic priest dude?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with his work?
Not much of it.
Homeboy Industries is a nonprofit in downtown LA. It's almost became like a truce area, a neutral area for gang members. They can come in, they can get skilled, they can get certified, they can develop trades, craftsmen, and then they're working towards getting people jobs, getting people opportunities. I think the solutions is in equipping people for financial literacy, dealing with their mental health, and allowing them to move up and create better economic opportunities for themselves. I think that's how you combat it. I think Homeboy Industries is a beacon of light. I got another buddy of mine who runs a nonprofit down the street, and
so
it's a shelter.
What I hear you saying is that one of the solutions then is, if you're born, I live in New Jersey. One of the cities is Camden, very poor area. You know,
I'm familiar with that.
Right, yeah. So the solution is, hey, if you're born in Camden, just gotta work extra hard, man.
No, that's not what I just said.
Yeah,
I said
financially literate.
No. I said what I painted you was what Matthew 25 describes. Matthew 25 describes the parable of the talents, right? You're familiar with the parable of talents.
I'm not that far gone.
Okay, well, you said you don't pray anymore, so I'm like, I don't know where this man is at. Matthew 25 goes from the parable of the talents. And then the interesting thing, which is, by the way, very capitalistic and like work hard, right?
Oh, okay.
But let me get there.
I'm getting there.
And then from Matthew 25, the parable ends. That parable ends, and then he goes right into caring for the least of these. And people compartmentalize those two passages. Parable of the talents, yay, entrepreneurship, rich, all that stuff. Get it, right? But it goes right into caring for the least of these. It goes right into, when I was naked, you clothed me. When I was homeless, you took me in. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. Right? So I think the solution is those folks who are capable and have the resources, build something for your life, and then go and help other people, right? Go and help other people. I think when we're looking at, there's in 1 Timothy, he talks about the widows in the church, right? And he says, hey, there's widows in the church. Some of them are young. Listen, if they're gonna be busybodies, they should just get remarried. There's other widows in the church that have families. Hey, you should take care of the widows that are a part of your family. Any man that doesn't provide for the needs of his family, specifically his immediate family, he's worse than a non-believer, is denied the faith, right? And then there's the widows who don't have anyone. Those are the widows that the church should take care of, right? And so there's this system of, hey, we as the hands and feet of Jesus, those of us that are capable, go and create opportunities for other people.
Right. So I'm trying to.
I would point it back to personal charity.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Which is not working.
Based on what?
Based on all the stats. Are you kidding me?
Based on what stats?
Okay, the average BIPOC worker makes $15 an hour or less.
What's it? Well, BIPOC worker? What are you talking about?
Black, Indigenous, people of color. BIPOC. Okay. They make $15 an hour or less.
Okay.
The average single parent who works full time, $15 or less. The wealth gap in this country is bigger than ever. Okay, poverty has not even come close to being even limited, let alone like helped. And also, how about passages like James 5? Are those for you as
yeah, absolutely.
So the warning about like, woe to you rich oppressors who do not pay your employees fairly. Yeah. So like, what do you see?
You could ask my employees.
No, not you. I'm asking like,
they get compensated. They get a percentage too every month.
How much do you guys get paid? Yeah, you guys get 401k. But like, does that have any implication for like how we critique systems and how we critique business, how we critique corporate capitalism?
I think there's a difference between systems and individuals. Systems are always going to be jacked
You're individualizing the Bible as
no, because there was no systems back then.
Yes, there were.
There was the Roman Empire. That was
the system of the empire.
Yes, that was extremely oppressive to Christians.
Which was nothing like our capitalist society today, right?
It was worse.
Night and day.
It was 100 times worse.
Oh, depending on who you were.
is 100 times worse for the people that were reading those scriptures at the time.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
Okay.
because they were Jewish people under the empire.
Yes,
of course.
It was worse for them.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're living in a time where even poor people have a better experience than rich people from 150 years ago.
No, this is a bad argument, because what is the standard of living that they need? If you can't get affordable health care, if you're eating food all the time, if you're worried to death that you can't pay rent, though, even though we have more technology, people still
air
have the
conditioning, shelter, cars.
Some of them do. We have over 500,000 people who are currently unhoused, and we have more houses available that are vacant for those people.
Well, that's that. Okay, so there we're talking about, that's a system issue. If we have empty retail spaces that are sitting vacant, and we can't rezone those areas
and
to
houses.
make them
we have vacant houses too,
and we can't rezone those areas, and we can't figure out a way to do that. I think the homelessness issue goes back to when we opened up the mental institutions. I think that's really the root of it. If you look at the number of beds people had the number of beds people had way back in the 50s, and then now there's way less beds per 100,000 people than there were in the 50s and 60s. And we shut down so many mental institutions because this is the give and take. Do you institutionalize people without their bodily consent if they're not a threat to themselves and somebody else, or do you institutionalize them against their will? And we said that's wrong. So a lot of these institutions shut down. There's less beds for mental illness stuff today than there was 50 years ago, which is crazy per capita. And what happened? Homelessness went up, mental illness went up, mass shootings went up. All these things went up on the byproduct of that. So I think the homelessness issue, I think, is way less capitalism's bad, and I think it's way more mental illness and a lack of resources for people.
That is also okay. And listen, I'm going to be clear. I'm not necessarily, like, oh, capitalism has to be destroyed. I get we live in a capitalist society, but we have to understand the problem. That is a problem, capitalism.
How is that a problem with capitalism?
Because we don't have affordable healthcare in this country. It's all based on a capitalist society. So if you can't afford healthcare, if you can't afford your premium,
what state are
you
in?
Can't get New Jersey.
You guys don't have affordable healthcare?
It depends how much money you make, right? So
we have covered California.
No, we don't have that.
Okay, so affordable healthcare passed with Obama. California got covered California. The reason I was able to quit my job in 2015 is because I got covered California. My health insurance went, I would have paid $1,500 for my family on the free market.
Sounds about right.
Right?
Yeah.
I was able to quit my job when we were paying $300 a month on through Covered California. And I think we all have covered California.
Yeah. So we have New Jersey family care, which if you make essentially a poverty wage, you can get coverage. But once you jump $1 over that, you're no longer able to get coverage, right? So it's a huge dilemma.
So we've been able to maintain coverage, and we don't make a poverty wage.
Then what happens is New Jersey has another option, which essentially they subsidize, depending on how much money you make, up to a certain amount, what you might be paying for a healthcare cost, right? But that's only if you're in a state that has those programs. Many do not. And this is kind of my point, is like, I think what I'm trying to say ultimately is we live in the world's richest country. Like literally, financially, we have the most wealth like per capita anywhere, right?
Sure.
We have no excuse not to be able to provide things to people that they need to survive in a society, whether it's housing or affordable healthcare. And if we can fuel our military industrial complex by almost $1 trillion a year, you're telling me we can't figure out like some of these other issues that other countries with less wealth than us do pretty darn well. Not perfect. No system is perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but there are systems and people who live in the world who are like, you guys worry about your healthcare. You worry about if you leave your job, losing your healthcare. So like, I use that point a lot because it's like, that's a great example of we could fix this stuff.
Yeah,
but we don't.
I think it's not, we could fix it. Sure enough. Fair enough. I think we could fix it. I think the government's too inflated and inefficient to fix it. I think it's too inflated and inefficient to fix it. I mean,
that's a good take.
For Covered California and for Obamacare when it passed, there was a lot of other issues around it, infrastructure-wise. Other people whose rates did go way up.
Totally.
Right? So it was
a horrible compromise.
Yeah, it was a tough compromise.
And I was alive during that time. I know what the talking point was from every single Republican ever. It's socialism, it's Marxism. They fought that bill tooth and nail to make it help make it what it was. Right. I'm not saying Democrats are innocent or that they don't do bad things. I'm just saying that, listen, in my tradition, dude, here's what I'll tell you. In my faith tradition, okay, the political perspective you had as a, quote, Jesus follower was welfare is Marxism and socialist. People need to work harder to get jobs. Poor people are just lazy. People who don't have health care probably don't work hard enough. We can't give affordable health care because that's socialism, and that's the Christian way. Oh, also, can we also minimize the amount of regulations for access to guns? You're a good Christian.
I think when you are describing policy things and you're connecting them to faith, I understand how that can be murky. Okay, I think here is one of the areas I say we have to compartmentalize a little bit. and we have to say these are different policies that impact people differently. So do I think right now in 2023, with all the access to technology and all the access to trade schools and all the access to learn and all the access to do all the stuff somebody can learn, whether they're in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia or they're in Florida, like people have more access to education. People have more access to learning skills than ever before. And I think, and it's not as shallow as pull yourself up by the bootstrap.
My understanding in particular of the Appalachian folks, like they have access to almost nothing. Like they are the epitome of poor whites in America. Do they have access to trade schools? Like how would they even get there?
I don't know about trade schools, but I'm saying they have access to pulling up YouTube and developing and learning a skill. You can learn almost any new skill within 24 hours.
I mean, I don't mean to downplay, but that sounds to me like, hey, listen, you can be your own boss, babe. Just join my MLM. Like you can get the Ferrari too if you just work hard enough. It's like, no, it's not that simple. The system is stacked against the person in the MLM to get that thing.
Okay.
Right? So like you can say, hey, go on YouTube, it's all there. But there's other things in place that factor into that person not succeeding that are outside of their control.
If someone right now has a computer or a phone, they can learn how to edit video right now. I'm using the most tangible, practical example right now. They can reach out to a plethora of creators and get paid to make short form content right now.
No, they cannot.
I'm telling you, I know people that I've personally hired.
Yeah, right.
Tim, that I've personally hired that had no video experience.
Right.
That I said, hey, take this conversation with me and Tim, chop it up, make it into a short. We'll pay you X amount.
Right.
Right. And I've had people reach out and build agencies for themselves,
right.
Tim.
But
let me finish my thought. And they make a couple grand for me every month, and then they ask me if I can connect them with someone else. Then they hire another client, then they hire another client, and before you know it, they're making 10 grand a month. And they're doing it on an iPad and on a phone. Like that's happening right now.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is you're telling
there's no system suppressing them, bro. There's no one keeping them from doing that.
No, dude, you are telling the story of what multi-level marketing people tell their followers. Hey, here's our success. For every one of those, there are 1,000 that aren't there, dude, because of other reasons. How do you buy a computer? How do you buy a computer?
You go to a library and use a computer.
Oh, okay. So you're telling me that what they have to do is they have to somehow get your content on a library computer,
how can they
load up Final Cut, edit it, and learn it themselves, and then grow a business.
How much do you think a computer is they need
for editing?
Yeah,
software.
Yeah, ballpark. Just give me a ballpark.
I mean, well, plus the software too, probably, right?
Okay, $1,000. Okay, $1,000. You don't
Yeah.
think someone can scrape up $1,000 to get an M1
in the
MacBook
Appalachian
Air?
Mountains?
I don't
Probably
know.
not.
I don't know about the Appalachian Mountains.
That's my point, dude.
I'm talking about. Let's just remove the Appalachian Mountains. Let's just say the Appalachian
But
Mountains
they exist.
are North Korea.
Systemic
They're just
problems
isolated.
deserve systemic solutions.
They're isolated from all the civilization. No one's helping them. They can't go and make any money because let's just say that. Let's say I can see the point. Okay, let's say I can see the point. You think the average American right now can't scrape together $1,000 right now to go buy a laptop right now and figure out a skill or a trade to start earning more money for themselves?
You should look up how much the average American has in their savings account right now.
Oh, it's awful.
Thank you.
It's
There's
awful.
my point. The
Yeah,
average American can't take $1,000 hit to anything.
60% of them, when it's more than that, 70%
high.
living
It's high.
paycheck to paycheck. Most people can't afford
It's like
$1,000
$500 in like their savings.
Yeah, it's brutal.
okay. So there's your $1,000 that they can't
It's
scrape
brutal.
up.
It's
There you
brutal.
go. That's my answer.
75% of Americans are also overweight, right? Like, yeah, that's a real statistic.
Okay.
I'm just saying. You
Right, because look at our food supply. Have you watched Food Inc.?
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
you know that the
So-
food that we're getting
so-
fed is garbage because the corporations want to count. They would rather make the profit than actually feed people healthy, nutritious food. It is cheaper for McDonald's to make a cheap burger full of garbage and sell it for $2.99 than it is for them to actually sell people healthy meat.
Okay.
So like, I'm just trying to make the point that again, I'm not trying to sound super extreme. I get that there is, of course, a level of personal responsibility,
Yes.
but if we don't acknowledge that there are systems that are benefiting at the expense of other people,
Yes.
right, and that have been put in place before that we still have ripple effects of, systemic
I'm not
issues need
denying-
systemic solutions, dude.
Tim, I'm not denying that there's not crazy subsidies between the government and the sugar companies and the corn companies. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's systems and obviously there's issues in place.
Great.
I'm saying I don't bank on you and me, or if we were to combine all of our audiences, that we're going to overturn the fact that sugar is pumped into all of our food. I'm not banking on that, bro. I'm not banking on we're going to overturn high fructose corn syrup so that's not the food easily available. I'm saying the human spirit has the capacity to do way more when it's packaged with right information and when it's given a demonstration of said right information. I'm saying that I made a video 3 years ago when I was broke about everything I spend at Aldi's to hit my macronutrient goal and be able to consume 180 grams of protein every day and get shredded. In 2019, when I was broke, when I was just a full-time Christian rapper, and I put that video on YouTube, and it cost me $32 a week shopping at Aldi's. Let's adjust for inflation. Let's say it's $40 a week shopping at Aldi's. People can do it, man. Like, people can do it. And I'm just saying, I'm not banking on the government to change. We see, according to the Bible, that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when he answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used from my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.